Good morning, grandkids. Today we'll be reading chapter 21 of my book, The Listener. Oh, I didn't get my light fixed so I can see. I took out my folded map and saw that the Half Moon Mill, where my next target lived, wasn't too far up the road from the sanctuary. Killing a vampire should be done in the daylight hours, I assumed, so I had planned accordingly and was up at dawn. I had some breakfast, checked my weapons, and left the sanctuary. I started up the road that wound through the Fall Creek woods, where I could see through the thick growth of trees the rising sun turning the sky a rosy pink was hovering in the sky. It was going to be a beautiful morning for traveling. There were so many flowers along the road with butterflies lazily moving from one to another. Lovely to watch. In among the trees, I spotted a magnificent elk with a huge rack of antlers. I didn't get to enjoy that for long. He knew I was there and bounded away. When I reached the stone bridge that I was looking for, I saw that they had built their mill along the river on one side, but had built their home across the bridge on the opposite riverbank. Their house was a small, rough stone cottage with a thatched roof, and there were a few chickens squawking around in the yard. Saw some Saw some suspicious-looking bones tossed in the yard. Looked human to me. I had been told that they had tried to fit into society unnoticed, but I'm sure they had to feed once in a while on what they needed to survive. Of course, I wondered why someone wanted them dead. Oh well, mine was not to wonder why, but just to do. And they die. I have my funny moments. I headed toward the door and almost brained myself when I stepped on a rake, prongs up, in the yard. In my defense, the sun was in my eyes and I didn't see it. I unlocked the door, went in to sneak, and tiptoed into the room. Inside was just one room, sparsely furnished, very small living space. Hearn and Hurt, I swear they sound like twins, were both in bed, sleeping. I slipped out my daggers and went around to the far side of the bed where Hearn lay. I quickly took care of him, and his body slowly slid off the bed. His wife, of course, woke up and started to rise. I quickly got around the bed and sliced her throat, causing her to fall back onto the bed. The job was done, and I took my time leaving, searching around for anything I might be able to use or sell. They had nothing much of value and very little money. I hoped I was going to get paid well for this assassination. I was so disgusted with the limited loot. As I went out the door, I kicked a chicken out of my way, and it went flapping and squawking across the yard. I saw a chopping block and an axe. I was so disgruntled about not getting any good loot that I killed the chicken. I cleaned it and took it back into the house and cooked it over the fire in the fireplace. And I sat down at their table and ate it, and drank their mead and ate their cheese. I left the cottage thinking about my next job, killing an orc bard. I couldn't even imagine it. How could he sing with those big fanged teeth? He was at Morthal, which was going to be a long trip, because it's clear on the northwest side of the map. Hopefully, I'd be able to hitch a ride with a trader or a farmer going in that direction. I did eventually get there and had planned to get a room and sleep for a while. I was exhausted. But you know how plans change. I walked into the Moonside Inn, and there he was. He wasn't singing, he was playing a flute, badly. No one was in there, but he was playing anyway. I wondered why the bartender didn't tell him to give it a rest. But she was at the far end of the room, behind the bar, with her back turned. She seemed preoccupied with something. I wondered if I could take advantage of this situation. Lurbeck was playing with his eyes shut in his own world. I slipped out one dagger and a potion bottle of invisibility. I slipped over behind a wooden support beam right beside him. I stabbed him in the back, drank and became invisible, and walked back out the door. Amazing. Gotta be the easiest kill ever made. I walked on down the street and waited. Eventually, I saw the bartender hurrying out and calling for a guard. After they went back in, he hurried back out, motioning to another guard, and they got Lurbeck carried out and laid him in the street. They stood around looking at him like they didn't know what to do with him. I sauntered back up the street, went back into the inn, walked casually back to the bar and sat down. I asked her what was going on. She started telling me her version of what happened, which was certainly better for me than what the truth would have been. I sat there and ate in leisure. After that, I scouted around for someone willing to haul me to Markarth for a good amount of coin. Once there, I hired the carriage driver to take me all the way back to Falkreath. Once settled in, I promptly fell asleep and slept all the way back home. On the short walk from Falkreath to the sanctuary, I thought about this easiest kill I'd ever made, and how dense or lazy the townspeople in Morthal must be. Then I started thinking about Astrid. I wondered if she had had enough time thinking about what happened between me and the Night Mother, what wrath I might be facing back at the sanctuary. Uh-oh. As soon as I walked in, Astrid was waiting for me. First words, "We need to talk." I didn't know if I was dreading the confrontation or looking forward to it, but there was no confrontation. She was still suspicious about what was going on, but she didn't seem to be upset at me. She actually wanted me to go ahead and meet with Ahmad Motier, and as she put it, see where this leads. I found Nazir eating and drinking, again, in the dining hall. This seemed to be his office. I sat down beside him, and he said, "Please tell me you flayed that bard alive and made a drum from his skin." I had to laugh at him. The only good bard is a dead one, all that singing and mirth. He is so dour and doesn't seem to like much of anything or anyone, but I've seen that he does have a dry sense of humor from time to time. I really do find myself drawn to him, especially his voice. I told him how easy the kill was, then described Hearn's place and how the kill went, and about the chicken. He actually chuckled a bit and said that he'd see if he could make up for the lack of loot. Then he said, "No sarcasm this time. You faced a vampire and lived to tell about it. Well done." He gave me my payment and got up and left the room. I was disappointed he didn't linger with me while I had a bite to eat, but I knew he wasn't one for leisurely chit-chat. After I ate, I went up to bed to get some rest before heading out to Volenrud to see what Motier wants. I also propped up in bed and wrote down these happenings for you, whomever you might be. I'm really wondering how my being the listener is going to affect Astrid. And so that's the end of chapter 21. And I will see you next time with chapter 22. Hope you enjoyed this one, grandkids. And bye-bye for now.